in Australia. It's nearly 13 minutes past 4 on ABC Radio Brisbane, broadcasting from Ipswich from the Fire Station 101 Innovation Hub in the heart of Ipswich. I'm not quite sure how much you know about Ipswich, but there's always been a bit of, I don't know if tension's overstating it, but a bit of difference or friction between Brisbane and Ipswich, somewhat from Ipswich residents, and my next guest may be able to explain why. And it partly is the result or to blame by the media, where the media reports stories. And I'm thinking my next guest, who used to work at the council here, he's been around this town for a long time, Allan Roebuck. Allan, thanks for coming on. Just to tell me the story of why Ipswich dislikes being described as part of Brisbane.
Well, it's good to be here, Steve. Thanks for asking me in. I think, look, people who were born here, people who've lived here a long time, very proud of where they live. And Ipswich has its own local identity going way back to when it was first declared a municipality in 1860. So that pride lives on from generation to generation. And as new residents come in and meet older residents, I think that pride spreads.
Tell me the news. Do you remember there was a story here, I don't know whether it's urban myth or not, that if there's a story that's bad news, it's described in one way, and if it's good news, it's described in another way. Tell me that story.
If it's good news, it's west of Brisbane. If it's bad news, it's in Ipswich.
Right, okay.
Yes. And it's getting better, though, I must say. It is getting better.
And this grates on people of Ipswich, doesn't it? It annoys them terribly.
It does. But look, the changes that the city's going through, and I think Gerard Pendy, your guest before 4 o'clock, explained it really well. You know, Ipswich has been going through lots of changes. It was a very small city up till 1949 in area. Goodna wasn't even part of Ipswich. That happened in 1949. Then the big one, of course, was amalgamation in 1995 of the old Moreton Shire. People who've been around who can remember that.
Which we'd all forgotten.
Yes.
I'd forgotten.
And Springfield, and the Springfield development, that area was actually Moreton Shire. So we fast forward to now, and I think some of the long-term residents of what I call the old Ipswich Central area and the older suburbs, they kind of resented Springfield marketing itself as Brisbane. I think that they're softening that view now because we do need to work together, as Gerard said. Mm-hmm. Some of that resentment is either...
So there's a belief here that the area will progress faster if Ipswich and Springfield work together.
Yes. Why wouldn't it? There's strength in numbers, always strength in numbers. And I think the other thing, there's some old chestnuts going around that council was paying for, or the existing residents, more importantly, were paying for all the shiny new things you see in the Springfield area.
Yep.
Well, it's not entirely true, because in each block of land that someone's bought in that area, all those infrastructure charges are built in. I think the average profit margin on a block of land that a developer likes is about 50 grand. So if you take that off, the rest of it's really, cutting up the land, building the streets, putting in the pipes, putting in the nice parks, and the shiny curb and channeling. And that's another bit of a divide in Ipswich. Some of those older areas of Moreton Shire, some of those rural blocks, say Carolee, for instance, no curb and channeling in most of those older areas. So people think that they're forking out for the newer areas, but they're not really.
This is ABC Radio Brisbane and Ipswich. It's 16 and a half minutes past 4. My name's Steve Austin. Allan Roebuck is my guest. I've asked Allan to give me a bit of a sort of a lay of the land in the suburbs, because Ipswich is actually very vast. It really starts at what used to be the Gales Roadhouse, which is now you can't get to now, but it's because I remember it. You remember the Gales? Yes. It's where all the bikers used to go many years ago and pull in for petrol when they'd drive between here. So there's Gales, and then south of there is Goodna. Then you're in Ipswich. Now Goodna is really closer to Brisbane than it is to the CBD of Ipswich.
Certainly closer to the boundary, yes.
Yeah.
But I think there's... I talked about perception before, and how some people are fostering the fact that, Springfield wants to be its own city. Well, I can't see that happening politically. It'd be interesting to hear from your listeners, Steve, as to whether that is perceived or real. Do the people in the old Ipswich suburbs want to be separate from Springfield or not? I don't think so. I think that's been pushed for political purposes by a few people. I don't think it's widespread. I could be wrong.
My text number is 0467 922 612. I'd be fascinated to know what you think of that. So you can send me a text, 0467 922 612. So that's Springfield. Let's go right to the other side. So if we were to drive, we were to ride our motorcycles out of Ipswich, through Brassel, out to the freeway or Black Soil or Highway.
Warrego.
We'd head out there. We'd be heading out to places like Marburg. And what's happening over there?
Haigsley and Marburg.
Right.
Our Marburg's just on the edge of the Ipswich local government area.
Yep.
There's been some infill development going on there. A new estate went in there. I think it's nearly fully developed.
Yep.
And so Marburg's population has grown. And if you go cut across then to Rosewood, there's been some new developments in Rosewood. Come back along the Ipswich-Rosewood Road, or the Rosewood-Ipswich Road, I can't remember which way it is now. But you come back to Walloon, and there's a major development going on there of housing. So it's not just Ripley Valley, even though they're the big ones, and the Springfield area. It's happening all over the city.
All right, so there's all these growth pockets or areas of growth and development that when the council's elected in March, they'll have to sort of decide how this all fits and how it all works together. If we were to go sort of south, I forget if I were to go south of where I am here, instead of out there, we'd be heading towards the new Spices Lodge at Hidden Vale. Is it Grantchester?
Grantchester,
that's
yes,
what I'm thinking
that's
of.
beyond.
How far out does the Ipswich boundary go out towards?
It is just beyond Grantchester.
Right, okay.
It's just beyond it.
Okay, so it's this new Spices thing, which I think opens next week or something, doesn't it?
Yes, that's in Ipswich.
Hidden Vale,
Yep.
so that's in Ipswich at Grantchester, and that's the boundary of the Ipswich city areas. Okay.
And if you're
that's a massive area.
It is. It's over 1,000 square kilometres. It was even bigger before they did a boundary realignment, I think about 2004. So the township of Peak Crossing on the Boona Road, most of Peak Crossing now is in Scenic Rim, just a tiny bit on the edge on the Ipswich side. We lost Harrisville and Peak Crossing when that boundary was tweaked a little.
Okay. What was the effect? Remember when Peter Beattie, you mentioned this before, when Peter Beattie was Premier, he brought in council amalgamation. How has that sort of played out to where we are now when it happened back then? Has it been a positive? Has it been a positive or not?
It was a massive issue at the time.
Yeah.
I can remember seeing news grabs of former councillors of the day absolutely violently opposed to it. It's going to be the end of the world as we know it if there's amalgamation.
Yep.
But look, in the end, everybody moves on. And as I said, even from 1860, 1949 and periods in between, there's been amalgamations and mergers all over the state, all over Australia. So it's just something that happens through time.
Okay. So just when you mentioned that Ipswich goes to Grantchester on the other side, it makes me realise how big this city actually is in terms of the area.
And that presents its challenges.
Huge ones.
You know, the rural areas with all their dirt roads, everyone would love to have a bitumen road, but the reality is it just doesn't work that way.
All right.
If you buy a property on a dirt road, you know you're buying a property on a dirt road. It's like buying next to the airport. You know that's where the planes land.
Yeah, don't complain about the noise. Yeah, you bought there. Now, talking about noise, Amberley. How does Amberley relate to Ipswich versus Springfield? Because a lot of the Amberley staff and their families actually live at Springfield, I think.
Well, that is increasing. Some of them are moving to Walloon in the new estate there.
Right, okay. Right.
Because it's at the back door of Amberley, very close. Look, I think where the city comes together, and you talked about how the different areas relate to each other, I think there are more things in common than there are different, and those things include sport. That is a huge one because people travel all over the city to play their different sports.
Yep.
The schools, the community groups, and of course health's a big one. A lot of people will be travelling to the Ipswich Hospital from all over Ipswich, or St Andrews, the private hospital. And the big recreation areas are a big attractor for not just locals but visitors. So we've got all those conservation areas and the mountain biking and stacks of stuff like that.
I was reminded earlier on today that here in Ipswich, apart from having one of the biggest drag race meetings in Australia, at Willowbank obviously, you also have CMC Rocks. CMC Rocks, which is the country music event.
It's massive.
Which is sold out virtually as soon as it goes online. And I think they get 30,000, 40,000 people. And that every year this takes place.
It started off smaller, Steve. It started off originally in New South Wales at the Snowies, and then it moved to the Hunter Valley, and they outgrew that venue, and then they went venue shopping, as it were. And I can speak firsthand about this because I was actually one of the people asked to suggest a possible venue. So they looked all around. They looked at Woodford. They looked all over the place, but they settled on Willowbank Raceway because you can make a lot of noise there.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. So they'll be making noise.
It is the perfect location. They're almost bulging at the seams now, which is terrific. So it started off, I think, with 5,000 the first year. Now you're well over 20,000.
All right.
Yep.
Would it help Ipswich and all of these different pockets of growth and development if the council, when the new council comes in, considered a more integrated sort of bus or public transport system to loop throughout these areas? Because you've got you're a bit trapped by the sort of the Brisbane controlled rail system, aren't you?
Yes. Well, we're not trapped, but the buses are also controlled by TransLink.
That's right.
So council doesn't get involved in public transport in that way. But there are some new routes that are going through Ripley and looping to Springfield, I believe. I think they're already in play. And some years ago, the state government set aside a corridor, which would be for a rail, to go from Ipswich Central, over the back of this hill here behind us, through Yamanto, Deebing Heights, Ripley Valley, back to Springfield Central train station. That's a long way off, though, but the corridor is set aside.
I appreciate you coming along. Thanks for giving me a bit of an education about just how vast this place is. Alan, thanks very much.
Happy to be here, Steve.
Allan Roebuck, and I hope to be speaking with Alan down the track between now and the local government election at the end of March. This is ABC Radio Brisbane. Steve Austin's my name. It's 24 minutes past 4, broadcasting live from the Fire Station 101 Innovation Hub in the heart of Ipswich.
In an emergency...